What's up, Gacha gamers? My name is ShawnSetGO, and today we're going to be covering a topic which has been the hot button as of today, and that is the Sensor Tower financial report for the month of June. And now this, I want to lead with a disclaimer in that these numbers cannot be 100% accurate simply because they don't include the total picture. They don't include PC numbers. They also don't include things like the Android store going down, I believe, for the second half of the month. So whenever you're counting these, take it as a general idea and not the Bible, as it were. Just simply it being a indicative of maybe an upward or a downward trend is what you can look at as. But it's not the full picture. So that's what I'm hoping to clear up today with those numbers. So let's take a look, and that is going to be a rank 20 by AFK Journey for the month of June. And now, of course, this isn't probably every game. I don't know how inclusive this list is, but you can see here that they started out with the month of May at 12 million, but to go a little bit further into it, it says a June revenue continues monthly decline to 7 million. So this has been indicative, or this has been continuing the trend of downward. So we can at least say that even if these numbers aren't 100% accurate, even for just the mobile store, it is been a downward trend since before May. So what do I want to talk about? The main thing I want to talk about here is why do we get numbers like this? Why does this happen? I want to be as fair as possible with this and not just dump on AFK Journey for having a bad month or a bad couple of months, but maybe talk about why these things happen and maybe compare some of the other games I've seen who have been doing similar in numbers but have actually had a upturn in some of their financial trends. So one of the games that I found, which is actually a much older game, so I thought it was a game that was great to base it off of, was Puzzles and Dragons. As you can see, Puzzles and Dragons holds a rank 8 spot and went from 13 million to 17 million. So almost the exact opposite of what AFK Journey did. And the reason why I thought this was interesting is because if you look at Puzzles and Dragons, the game that came out in 2012, but look at the news. They are doing a collab with My Hero Academia. So I think this is a great thing that Gacha games can do, and that is amazing collabs with other franchises that help drive interest into the game, and it's mutually beneficial for people who are interested in the franchise itself as well as the game itself. I think there was recently some controversy about a Zenless Zone Zero and Street Fighter collab that I don't think happened, but people were really interested in. So collabs are a great way for these things to improve, and this is something that obviously has had a positive effect, or could have had a positive effect, at least contributed to it. So that's one thing that I thought that was interesting. Another game that I saw that was interesting, sort of dissimilar to AFK Journey as well, and that is Dragon Ball Legends. Dragon Ball Legends holding a rank 6 spot, and look at their Twitter. Their Twitter is littered with character releases, extra bonuses, and just constant, here you go, here's bonuses, extra chance pulls, extra rewards, extra things. And of course, this is a different game, but I want to talk about how they're similar as well later in this video, and you're going to see it. And it's actually quite staggering how similar it is. So couple of games that have done a little bit better, or almost the exact opposite of the trend, but they started out in May right around the same ranking. So another one of the games that I looked at, because I was like, let me compare some games that I know are more popular but have had negative trends. So I'm looking at a game like Arknights going down from 44 million to 10 million. that number looked to me staggering. Like, even if the numbers are wrong, that is super staggering. Even if the Google Play Store was down, like, so it was down for everybody, it was down for everybody else. So I was like, why is this so bad? So looking at it, I was like, let's look at the numbers. And they said, this is a post in their Reddit. They're looking at the Sensor Tower, and people are saying quite universally that this is a normal thing after a limited banner drop, and some normal standard banner revenue starts coming in. So you could consider this very similar to, people are pulling for Floribel, but not so much for Alsa, and even less so for Soren, and maybe an upturn in Olmus, but it's still kind of not interesting people enough to actually start pulling and spending. So when it comes to banners that are really interesting, for example, Taline that's coming up soon, you're probably going to see an uptick in spending and increase in revenue, but that month after, you're likely to see a downturn. So that could be what we're seeing here. And if you look at it as well, Freysto is a character that came out June 6th. So if you look at a game like AFK Journey, you can see a little bit of a boost on the day of release, and it peaks. But overall, if you were to draw a line from the month of April until now, it's still on a downward trend. The thing that I'm comparing it to here is something like AFK Arena, which, by the way, still holds a ranking here at rank 33, which isn't nothing. And it's pretty steady state across the board. It's not getting too high, not getting too low, but we are still seeing in AFK Journey that numbers are going downward. So that's a game that can explain their negative trend. What about a game that can't? And it's actually quite similar to AFK Journey's experience. And this was from a veteran player. They tried to explain what were some of the issues with the game. So at first, the content for this game seems massive, but basically it's just bloated up since a lot of the events have no real value for newer players anymore. This can be very similarly explained to the preseason story, really not having, it has value in the sense that you want to complete it and you have to complete it, but a lot of it takes a lot of time to just get through that story, but there's not really a whole lot of value in season 1, so it's like this very similar experience. Also, the time to grind for a technical perspective is still horrendous. Maybe it got worse due to the size of the game, especially seeing the download screen 3 times before and after the event. So maybe not the download screen, unless you're talking about the initial opening screen, which does take a while to load. But it says, plus in the current meta where it's literally raining with effects like buffs and debuffs, I don't want to see it after my 5th run at a time, how those effects are applied. So much gets bogged down in the fact that there's so much synergies going back and forth. I don't think it's an issue when those synergies work together, but I think this is more of a like a heavy loading experience versus it being like something within the gameplay of the game. So not something that I 100% would compare, but at first I didn't like the amount of effects you're getting thrown at, but maybe because it's overwhelming. Now it kind of seems like you put a lot of effort into team building. So I think that this game, of course, is a team-based game, but I think what we're talking about that's similar is the metas that develop within the game and how difficult it can be to build that team if things don't go your way, if you're not pulling for the right characters, or if you simply just don't get lucky. So how important it is to follow a meta, and as opposed to just enjoying the game. It says the last point here is grinding has changed for Sir. Back in the day, you need key units to even beat an event. Now you need boosted characters to farm the content items as fast as possible. So that's what I'm saying. That is very similar to AFK Journey, or the feeling of AFK Journey, in that where clearing the first 11-25 stages and doing the preseason story, you definitely have a lot more wiggle room for experimentation, but definitely, if you want to clear those things with ease, you have to have those meta teams. You do have to get the EX skill, and you do have to get the Mythic Plus at least with certain characters before they're at their potential usage that you need. So I think this can compare to AFK Journey, not necessarily in the financial perspective, but we're seeing a lot of similarities in AFK Journey that are affecting the game negatively and can be affecting the revenue if these trends continue just as they have with a game like One Piece Treasure Cruise, which dropped 10-3. So a smaller comparison than Arknights, but explained by maybe bad gameplay versus just a limited banner event where people don't spend as much on the regular banners. So the last point I want to make here about game comparisons is something like it was the release of Solo Leveling Arise. So this is at rank 7, went down from 40 million to 18 million. My first thought was maybe it's just like Arknights, maybe it's because of the pulls. But I thought there was an amazing similarity between this and AFK Journey, and actually Painblade says it perfectly. So I'm gonna let him say it.
You have to remember a couple things. When you own an IP like this, your draw is not going to be original characters, okay? Your draw is going to be characters who are actually the characters from the stories.
And so I think this touches on a very important point that I think not a lot of people mention, which is a game like AFK Arena, which sits at rank 33, is where we get a lot of that hype and interest for AFK Journey. Frankly, where these new character banners, they're interesting, don't get me wrong, but they don't pull as much interest as a character that people know and they know is good. So a character like Talene is going to pull and drive a lot of interest because people are aware of how strong this character is. And so AFK Journey isn't quite on the track of Arknights. It's not quite on the track of a game like Dragon Ball Legends. Or I'm sorry, not Dragon Ball Legends. It is kind of on the track of Dragon Ball Legends, but it's not quite on the track of these big hitters like Honkai Star Rail, Wuthering Waves, because we're not really as interested in those brand new characters, because those brand new characters introduce a lot of confusion, they introduce a lot of question marks. So what are some of the other things besides game comparisons that I think are reasons that the game has been on this downward trend for their finances? And I think the main issue is starting out a new season. I think there's a lot of growing pains with the new season and going into that. And I think that with those mistakes, such as the big reward controversy, a lot of people were mass refunding and talking about basically the rewards not being in a state that was acceptable. Also, I think that with the release of a season, there's simply going to be a content lull. There's going to be events to fill those spaces, but how long is that going to hold people's attention? As we've seen, it's been a very short amount of time that these events have been able to hold people's attention. So very subpar event planning after the season has been released. And then, of course, the banner quality. I talked about the season, how we got a good character. You know, Floribel's a great character, but also Thorin, Olmus, maybe Freysto is kind of finding his place, and he has, but at first, a lot of people were really interested or couldn't pull for Freysto. And then also, this is what they've been talking about in the past few dev talks, is that there's not really a content map that we can see. We're not able to visibly see what the characters are going to look like. We've been promised a bunch of heroes, but no big content expansions that we can see being either expanded upon, stuff that's already been released, like being expanded upon, getting more lore behind some of the characters that are new, as well as some of the characters that have transitioned over from AFK Arena, and then no additional content for the current season that we're experiencing until I think the most recent update that they did today. So up until this moment, you know, what do we have as a reason to keep us in the game? Not much. So I think that unfortunately, there's not a lot that we can say uh, is going to improve over this next month. If you've looked into their most recent dev updates, there's a lot of promises there, but we can't say how that's going to affect it positively, or if it's going to affect it positively long enough to be good overall, or is it going to be like the trend has been and just kind of give it a little boost and then continue its way down. So I hope it's the former. I hope it actually does get that boost and it holds on to that boost. I hope things kind of, it's on a downward trend, but this is their way of finding their path back to a growth. And this is one of the things that I think is important about gotchas in general. Like I said, of course, you're taking this with a grain of salt, but I think it's important to note that with these games, we're not making 100% one-to-one comparisons, but we can use the methodologies that other games that are using to improve the game overall. So I don't think that ideas should be shut out. If you're a gotcha player veteran, new or old, you should definitely be pumping in those ideas into forums, into feedback, into places like my stream, which we do stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I would love to see your comments as well and your thoughts. That way I can find out like what are the ways that I can as a content creator share something that can improve the game overall, because I do want to see this game improve and get better. If you do want to see some of my old content, I recently talked about the character teaser trailers and which one I thought was better. So if you want to see videos like that, check out my page, subscribe to the page. And that's all I got, guys. I hope this was helpful. I hope this helped you out to understand some of the finances a bit better. Maybe you have a better understanding. Maybe you understand why this is happening, for better or for worse. And of course, I want you to draw your own opinions and conclusions from this. You don't have to take my word as gospel. Take it as I am now aware and maybe either cautious or cautiously optimistic for AFK Journey's future. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. I've said it like 3 times. And that's really all I got. So I'm going to stop right there. All right. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.